Hello, I'm the Miami Autism Dad Victor Antunez, inclusive my realtor, and this is the Autism Podcast at Miami's Community Newspapers. Today I'm with Fernanda Jorgensen, Executive Director of Philanthropy Miami. Welcome to the show, Fernanda.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we met a few months ago at, what was the event again that we met?
Donor Next Door.
Yes, and it was downtown. A lot of people were there. We could see a lot of, friendly faces. So Philanthropy Miami, you guys were founded in 1997.
Correct.
And it was called what then?
It was Leave a Legacy. It was a program that was founded by two individuals in the community that worked really closely with the philanthropic and nonprofit sector in Miami-Dade County. They saw a gap. They felt like there needed to be someone bringing people together to provide education and opportunities for collaboration and networking. And they heard about a program called Leave a Legacy, which was part of a national public awareness campaign to promote charitable giving in the community and to educate nonprofits on how to set up planned giving programs. And so for over a decade, Leave a Legacy provided opportunities for education. And we had this signature program called Donor Next Door, which is really saying the message that everyone can be a philanthropist. I think sometimes when you hear the word philanthropy, it sounds very elitist. And they were very much in the belief that everyone can be involved. Everyone can donate their time, their talent, or their treasure. And Donor Next Door was a way to celebrate that. And so nonprofits can come into the event and honor one of their donors, whether it's through their time, talent, or treasure. And the donor gets an award, and it's a beautiful celebration of philanthropy. So I was so glad to see you there. Actually had a celebrity moment, like, oh, Autism Dad is here.
Thank you. It's funny you use that word elitist because very often, like you think of like these big, like billionaire donors or millionaire donors, like Ken Griffin. Like he just bought the naming rights for the Ronald McDonald House that's going to be built by Jackson Memorial. Well, I had on Soraya from Ronald McDonald House, and she says that on their website, they've got a button where you can do gifts in kind. It goes to their Amazon page, and you can buy things like detergent, toilet paper. So they make it super easy to be a philanthropist.
They are amazing. And not only providing goods, but you can also go there and you can prepare a meal for the families.
Yes.
I was just there. I'm so excited for their expansion. They're going to be able to serve so many more families. And Soraya
She's great.
She's a powerhouse. But yes, everybody can be a philanthropist.
Yes.
You can do community service, you can serve on a board, you can donate resources. So there's many, many ways to be a philanthropist, and Donor Next Door is that celebration.
Yeah. Like that's a great name, by the way, because then you feel all, like, oh yeah, I'm the donor next door. And what I always think about like these nonprofits is like, you got to make it as easy as possible to give, because people like the in-kind gifts at Ronald McDonald House, like, wow, detergent, because you can see how that will be put to use. Toilet paper, cleaning supplies, like, wow, like, these families that are there overnight, they need that.
Yeah, I think, people sometimes, with the earthquakes right now in Venezuela, right? Every little bit helps, and right now financial donations is the most helpful, right? Because it's the most flexible. But
transferable.
You also have to trust the organizations. And so there's a little bit of work to do around making sure that people understand and trust the organizations that they donate to. And so that's really the role of Philanthropy Miami, is to be that neutral convener, ecosystem builder, and to really elevate and advocate on behalf of the sector and all the wonderful people that, work behind the mission.
It's interesting. You use that word gap. And I've had a lot of conversations on the podcast with groups it was parents that saw a gap and they filled it. Like Card. That was a mom who had an autistic son named Ken, who's become a friend of mine. Advocacy Network was also started by parents, parent to parent. And what's interesting, and even like you guys, after a while, you get so big that you almost feel like a government organization. But we're just parents who just saw a gap and you started it. And this is so awesome, because a lot of times we think of the government. They've got to do this, that, the other. But no, a lot of times it's just us as parents. We got to do something about it.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's in the history of behind every nonprofit, there's this
a story,
mission, a purpose, a story.
Yeah.
And we bring the lived experience. So nobody better than us to really advocate and see those gaps and find solutions. Now,
talking about story, in 2012, you had a boating accident and that kind of got you to slow down.
Yes.
And tell me about that.
Yes. So in 2012, I was invited to go on a boat ride with some friends. And unfortunately, the driver was a little bit reckless, and another boat went flying past us and created a wake. And he took the waves head on, and the boat went flying in the air. And on one of the impacts with the waves, I fractured a vertebra in my lower back. And at that time, I was very always on the go and was just kind of, always chasing the next thing and getting injured and having to pause, like literally, really gave me a different perspective. I had to do a lot of healing and it took a lot of time. And it was both physical and emotional and spiritual healing for me. And has really changed my perspective on life since then, especially now becoming a parent, especially a parent to a child on the spectrum. It's just made me just be more present and to pause and to really appreciate and have a lot of gratitude because life can change at any instant.
On a dime.
Mm-hmm.
So 2012 is the accident. When did you become involved with Philanthropy Miami?
So I'm actually coming up on my 3rd year anniversary. I cannot believe it's been 3 years. I was at the time, I had been working for another organization for about 8 years, and I was very happy. But I also felt like it was time to step into more of a leadership role. And this opportunity with Philanthropy Miami came about. And at first, I was very frightened by the idea of taking that leap. But I decided to take the leap, and the role has stretched me in so many different ways. I get to do things I've never done before. There's always a scary sense to doing things that you may not be an expert on or know anything about, but you learn and you grow. There's that saying, nothing grows in a comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I've been able to experience. And the best part of my job is I get to meet so many wonderful people doing such good work in the community. I mean, Miami leads the state in number and types of nonprofits. I say we address every issue from climate to arts to education to healthcare. And it's just, it's a joy. It's a joy to get to be so plugged into the community and then also serve as that advocate for the sector and the people that are working. I think there's this misconception about the nonprofit sector being just, charities, but we're actually solution drivers and economic drivers. So we employ over 77,000 people in Miami-Dade County, and we generate about $21 billion in annual revenue. So we are not, a small, insignificant part of the economy, as well as, solving, like you said, where, government won't go, where businesses don't go.
Unpack that for me about the economic part. Yeah. I've never heard those kind of numbers. Those are really big numbers.
Yeah. So, one of the roles of Philanthropy Miami is to provide data for the sector. And so we partner with our state association, the Florida Nonprofit Alliance, to provide that data so that you, as a CEO or as a board member, can talk to your donors or the elected officials to talk about the impact of the sector, not only on the community, but also on the economy. So I'm happy to share that data. You can also go on our website and find the report.
Yeah, because data is really hard to come by, actually. Because I've asked a lot of questions to people that are like in this world for a long time, and there's some numbers that aren't kept. Like I've asked how many people with autism are in Dade County. Nobody knows the exact number. They can kind of extrapolate 1 in 22 times this equals that, but nobody knows the exact numbers.
Right. And it's so hard to track over time too, especially Miami being such a transient community, people coming and going, but it's really important. We're a very data-driven organization. And so whatever we can do to provide that information for the sector is one of our priorities.
Yeah. Something I also think about, because you're talking about like employment, is the economic driver of these people with IDD, which is intellectual disabilities, as they age out of high school and they go into the workforce. Like, I've read a lot of articles that say they've got a very positive impact on the economy. Do you guys track those numbers too?
So not for that population in particular, but we work with organizations that, might be able to do that. And so I think that, there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, with people with disabilities and entering the workforce, but I'm so glad that there's organizations that are addressing those issues. Yeah,
there are. There's like WOW, and there's other ones that are doing really good work.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny about Miami is that people that aren't from here, when you mention Miami, you can just see like in their mind, like there's just all these cliches of, Miami Vice, Scarface, what have you. And it's like, and Miami's got a very deep bench when it comes to the nonprofit and philanthropy world. And, you with what you do, you're like right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think we're becoming increasingly more generous community. I mean, if you look at, organizations like the Miami Foundation and Give Miami Day, and how when it first started, I think, they were generating maybe, a few $1 million, and now it's like $43 million, that's raised in one day from individuals like you and I. And there's still so much more opportunity for us to be more civically engaged, more engaged with the community. But you're right. There's, like I said, 2,500 active nonprofits that are actively contributing to the economy every day and addressing all kinds of issues, like I've mentioned before. And so we have a really robust ecosystem, and we get to be really at the heart of that.
Yeah. Like speaking of Give Miami Day, I don't think until I was in this world with my daughter that I even knew they existed. And I think that's a problem, because I think a lot of people do want to give money and do want to help, and they just don't know about this. And like, also like the card, Center for Autism and Disabilities. I talked to an autism grandma. She's been here all her life. And when I mentioned to her a card last year, she's like, I never heard of that. I was like, how is that possible?
I have the same question, because I wasn't familiar until, I was in it. And it took even a while for me to find these resources. And I consider myself a pretty resourceful person. I don't know what it is about our sector that we need to just do a better job with visibility and storytelling. But it all boils down to not having sometimes those marketing dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the criticism I have of philanthropy is sometimes, it could be so restrictive, because most institutional funders fund a program or a particular project, and they frown upon things like marketing or salaries or administrative costs. But if you think about it, a nonprofit at the end of the day is a business like any other. And so to really be able to get the word out of the programs and services that are available, you need marketing dollars. That shouldn't be seen as an indirect or administrative cost that shouldn't be covered. And so I think we just have to, shift our mindset a little bit about how dollars are spread and distributed in the community to these organizations and what they should be used for. Because at the end, it really does build the capacity of the organization. So there are some funders that are shifting, their practices because they're aware of these, what I call really harmful philanthropic practices that don't allow the organization to really increase its capacity. And so that's part of the reason, I think.
Harmful? What do you mean by harmful?
Because they, like I mentioned, they can be very restrictive, right? So sometimes funders will say, for example, I'm only going to fund this program, right? I'm not going to fund
a general fund.
Right. And so this program and all the costs have to be attributed to this program. So you can't fund anything that's considered overhead. And sometimes marketing can be considered overhead. But that's really part of the overall organization's ability to get the word out, right? To make sure that people know that they exist and that the programs are there and the services are there. So if you fund a general operating support, that money could be used for whatever the organization thinks it needs. And so I think that could answer some of the challenges about visibility and making sure that people are aware of the services that the organization has.
You talk about these people saying that they want to restrict their dollars. And I'm just thinking, like, if a donation is big enough and it's restricted just to this one thing, you might have to actually say no, because it might cause problems or you're in the red elsewhere. Is that a thing?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the hardest things for a nonprofit is to say no to funding. But there is such a thing as that not all funding is good funding.
Yeah. And
so sometimes donors can also want to fund something that's not related to the mission. And so I think, savvy nonprofit leaders have to, one, be able to have those conversations, right? Be able to have those honest conversations with donors about what's really mission aligned. And if it goes beyond your mission, then you might just have to say, no, thank you.
Now, a lot of these nonprofits are the smaller ones, the newer ones. They probably don't have no idea what they're doing. They're just groping their way around. Do they come to you? And how do you guide them?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think over 60% of the nonprofits that we work with are considered small or grassroots. And, there's a couple things there. I think that one, there's a lot of really passionate, purposeful, driven people that find a gap in the community and decide to form a nonprofit, right? But they may not be business savvy, right? And so I think at the end of the day, you have to understand how to run a nonprofit is like running a business. And so when people come to me and they say that they want to start a nonprofit, the first thing I tell them is, have you done a scan to see who else is working in that area? Because 9 times out of 10, there's probably somebody already doing work in that area, and maybe you should consider partnering instead of trying to do your own thing. So that's one. Two, I think small nonprofits are also really important because some of them are doing like very niche work, but then they just need a little bit of help with finding resources, and we provide some training opportunities and education so that they could be the best that they can be. And then finally, whenever it comes to talking about philanthropy and money, I think that we don't have a money problem. I think that we have an access and distribution problem. And so sometimes those smaller grassroots nonprofits don't really have the networks or access to be able to tap into some of those dollars. So how can we close that gap? And one way that we do that is by bringing people together. So bringing philanthropists and funders and sponsors together with nonprofits so that, we can make those connections.
Yeah, especially in Miami, there's no shortage of money. There's a lot of money here.
We don't have a generosity problem.
No. I think maybe we just have like an awareness problem. Because there's people with very deep pockets that would want to give money, they just don't know where to go, and they're afraid of wasting their dollars.
Right. Or they're still giving somewhere else, right? So we have a lot of transplants. We have a lot of people coming into South Florida or Florida in general because of our tax, benefits. And so, but they might not yet be plugged in. And so their philanthropy might still be going somewhere else. But we're seeing that shift.
Okay. Now, if I started a nonprofit, how would I find you? Would I even know to look for you? Like, how does that work?
I hope so. I mean, if you, type in philanthropy in Miami, hopefully we would be one of the ones to pop up. But I wouldn't say that we have, the full market share. I think that we still have work to do to spread the word about not only what we do, but who we are and what our role is in the ecosystem. And that has shifted over the last few years. I think when I first started, we were really focused on capacity building.
What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think traditionally it means you have some kind of gap or some kind of area that needs strengthening. I find that term to be very deficit kind of framed, and so we were providing a lot of educational courses and programs to help bridge that capacity gap. But I think the way I see our work evolving is really more about ecosystem building and connection. And so it's really about creating a space where people can come together to, I believe there's a lot of shared wisdom. There is. And shared expertise and resources. And we just need to do a better job at collaborating and connecting. So that's how I really see our role as an ecosystem convener and connector.
That's awesome. Now, you had mentioned prior to the podcast that you wanted to talk about how dollars are actually used. Can we expand on that?
Well, when it comes to the disability space, right? I think...
why disabilities and not like philanthropy in general?
Oh, well, I was just looking at some numbers preparing for the podcast. And I was a little, a number jumped out at me that out of all institutional giving, foundation giving, only 2% goes towards nonprofits that focus on the disability space. And when we think about the percentage of the population that
it's more than 2%,
it's like 25%, right?
Really?
And so I find that there's a little bit of a discrepancy there about how many dollars go to serve nonprofits that are in the disability space. Of course, that's only accounting for institutional philanthropy, but the reality is that the majority of philanthropy comes from individual donors. And so there is no, national that I know of tracking of how many dollars go specifically to the disability space from individual donors. But when I think about it, it's such a personal, I think sometimes, we have a lived experience. You have a family member that might have a disability, or you yourself have a disability, so you have that connection. So yeah, it's just a curiosity thing that I was exploring about how much money moves into the disability space and what the potential for more.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I had read that 1 in 4 people lives with a disability. So then I was doing the math for Miami-Dade County. Yeah. There's 3 million people. 1 in 4 is like 700,000 people. Yeah. That's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people.
And a lot of them are living with disabilities that are like completely life-altering.
Right.
Can't work, can't get around. Like I had these girls on, they were It's funny because they were like so-called high-functioning autistic girls, but one of them said, "You know what? I don't like that word because when people they hear high-functioning, they think that you're okay." But she's like, "I'm blind in one eye, deaf in one ear. I need STS to get me drive me around," and she's like a very fully functioning woman, but she does have high support needs. And if we don't support them, then they're at home on the couch, not doing anything.
Yeah, and that doesn't. Nobody wins.
Nobody wins.
Right? Nobody wins.
Yeah. Now you are also an autism mom.
I am.
Your boy's 5 years old.
Yes.
Declan, you said?
Declan.
And how has that like informed your life?
I mean, gosh, I could go on so many different things that I've learned. I really think Declan's one of my greatest teachers. I think, we're still kind of relatively early in our journey, right? He was diagnosed when he was 2. He's now 5. We're now entering the school system. So there's still so much that I'm learning. And I think for me, how I define success has changed. Before it used to be about milestones or achievements. And I feel like success to me now is just providing the environment where he can just thrive, whatever that's going to look like, that he is his happiest self. And so to me, it's more about belonging, right? And making sure that he feels supported. And so there's a lot of joy in that. I also think that one of the things that I'm learning, sometimes I have a lot of mom guilt, like, am I doing all the right things? Am I doing too many things? He's in therapy, twice a week and has therapy at school, and he's only a kid. I struggle sometimes with, am I doing the right things? But I think being able to give myself some grace and compassion, right? I think sometimes like we worry about so many things that are outside of our control. And so just juggling all those, emotions and the mom guilt, especially leading a nonprofit, there's a lot of my time that I spend working, but it's something that I love to do. So just navigating all those different thoughts and feelings and emotions. But overall, I just feel very grateful. I feel like, when I think about my 2 worlds, right? My world as a mom and my world as an executive, like they're aligning in such a beautiful way.
That's nice.
And so I feel like it's all meant to be.
When my daughter had her regression, it's overwhelming. But I thought, my sister-in-law, she's a social worker in the public school system here in Dade County. Let me give her a call. And she told me exactly what to do. There's fiddlers, early steps, blah, blah, blah. And she made it really easy to get plugged into the system. How was that for you?
It wasn't quite as easy for us. We was very much learning as we go. And actually, we fell through the cracks. So there's amazing organizations and amazing people working in Miami-Dade County. Sometimes that happens, right? Even for families like us that has resources and can get plugged in. We didn't know what we didn't know. So when we finished early steps and we had our exit interview, we said Declan's doing great. He's potty trained, and so they're like, okay, great. He's ineligible services.
Imagine.
We didn't know, and so if we knew, we probably wouldn't have been so cheery and upbeat. Yes. And so when he was going to a private daycare school at the time, and the school said to us that he was showing signs that he might be on the spectrum and that they probably weren't the best school for him. And so once that happened, we realized we needed help and we had to go back into the system. So it took us 2-3 months to be able to qualify for services and go through that whole process. And so if we had known sooner, right? If we had known that interview was really, they were judging whether or not we could continue services, we probably wouldn't have lost that much time and gone through a lot of heartache. But he's in a, regular preschool now and he's doing great. So sometimes things happen because they're meant to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But we're still navigating now like the IEP process and figuring out what's the right school. And so it's a lot. It's a lot to navigate.
Were you at Philanthropy Miami when he had his regression?
Yes, actually. So we I started with the organization, and that was when, so we had two kind of situations happen. We enrolled him in his first school, and my son also has epilepsy. And so when the day before school was supposed to start, the principal called me and said, "Oh, I was reviewing your files and noticed that your son has seizures. No, he can't come here. Our teachers wouldn't know what to do." And I was shocked by that, because one, anybody can have seizures. And so I even offered to the school for them to get trained. I work really closely with Epilepsy Alliance, and I know they do provide free trainings, but they said, "No, he can't, come here." And so we had to scramble and look for another school. And that was like my first week on the job. So navigating a new job, trying to find my son's school, but we were able to find another school, and then went through that school for about 10 months before he started showing signs that he might be on the spectrum. And then they also were like, you should go somewhere else.
My wife and I, we also struggle with the part about because you want to think the best for your kid. But then when it comes to benefits and help, if you make it sound too good, you get cut off. It's this double-edged sword.
It is.
That really works against parents, because, as parents, we want the best.
Yes.
We want to present the best. But then at the same time, if it's too good,
yeah,
even if it's not, but we're trying to make it, just because we're trying to help ourselves work through it also, you're actually not even helping your kids.
We're also very grateful, right? Because we know, right? I mean, we know we shouldn't compare, but we know that there's families that are, struggling in different ways.
Yes.
And so, we look at our son and all the ways that he's thriving. And so we tend to focus on that. But you're right. When you focus on all the ways that he or she is doing well, it may stop you from getting the services that they actually need.
Yeah. And what's interesting, you were already in the philanthropy world, and your son has a regression, and you didn't know where to turn. Yeah. So imagine parents who are just in regular jobs.
I think about that all the time.
It's so overwhelming.
It is very overwhelming. I think about the parents that don't have the ability to advocate for their needs, or don't know where to go, and don't have, maybe are working 2-3 jobs, don't have the time to. I mean, I've spent so much time researching schools, therapies, where to live, and so, yeah, it's challenging.
I remember when my daughter had the regression. This was pre-AI, pre-ChatGPT. So back then it was Google. And, if you put in Miami Autism Services, you're going to get hundreds of pages. And that's good and it's bad.
Thing, I guess.
But at the same time, it's too much.
Yeah.
I remember going to Fiddler's, and after we had our evaluation, they gave me a stack of papers like this. And it's I didn't get past the first page. It was just too much. Yeah. And thankfully I had my sister-in-law to guide me through the process. Yeah. But if you don't have something like that, it's it can be really, really tough to get through that, especially for single parents.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's why, organizations like Parent to Parent and Card, they're so wonderful. They help kind of make sense of everything. And because there is a lot out there. I mean, we're very blessed in that sense as a community, that there are so many resources. But like you said, sometimes it could be overwhelming. Yeah.
And so people that are listening that don't know, Card, Parent to Parent, Advocacy Network, they're free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because at Card, they'll call you a client. I remember when I first saw it, I was how much is this going to cost? No, it's free. Because when you think client, you think they're going to charge you, but they're all free.
Yeah. We were actually very lucky when we had to do the evaluation for Declan. Card connected us with a program from the Children's Trust to help cover the cost of the evaluation, because they could be thousands of dollars. And so even for families like us, it's, we don't have that kind of money laying around. And so it was really helpful to be able to access those resources.
Well, the evaluation for us at Fiddler's was free. And for people that are listening, from 0 to 3, it's early steps. And then 3 to 5 is Fiddler's. But there's, and I've learned since then, but there's the evaluation and there is a diagnosis.
Correct.
Now the diagnosis is what you need for insurance. The evaluation is for your IEP.
Yes.
So that was free.
Yes.
And at Fiddler's, they're closed now, but it was across the street. And it was a 3-day process. It was really in-depth. Yeah. And then the diagnosis that I had to pay out of pocket for, a few $1,000s, that was in and out 15, 20 minutes. But you just got to check off these boxes for the insurance.
Yeah, we went through something very similar, where we thought that because we had the medical diagnosis, that's all we needed. And no, that's only half the battle.
It's just the rabbit hole goes deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, just a question, because I had my last closing questions here, but now that I've talked to you some more, you don't work directly with families. You work directly with the nonprofits.
Correct. We work directly with nonprofit organizations and people. So the people who work in nonprofits, and not just nonprofits. We also work with funders, with corporate sponsors, with community members. We have a board matching pilot that we just wrapped up, where we matched professionals in the community that want to serve on a nonprofit board, but might just need a little bit of support, either finding a nonprofit or getting some training. And so we work with the community individuals as well.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Fernanda, this has been a great conversation. I thank you. I thank you so much for what you're doing, because Miami's got a very deep bench, and it's people like you that are making it happen. There's that gap, and you fill it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, being an autism mom, autism dad, there's a little more connection there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know it's not easy.
It's not, but there's also a lot of
joy.
A lot of joy.
Yeah. And you know what? Being in the autism world, I've made a lot of friends I wouldn't have made before. Just because, I had no reason to be here. And now that I'm here, it's like I've met some great people.
Well, thank you for everything that you do, because you also really help bring to light a lot of the work that's happening in the community. And you also provide a lot of support to parents like ours. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have parents who reach out to me all the time, and I'm just happy to help. And there's people that are really hurting out there, and they need us to be there for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Fernanda, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Let's turn to the camera. We'll sign off. So this has been the Autism Podcast at Miami's Community Newspapers. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.